Hello, everybody, and welcome to Not Just a Seat at the Table, Leading with Impact. My name's Claire O'Connor. I'll be the moderator for this panel. We've got two speakers today, Tasha and Shannon. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. I'll briefly introduce myself and the two ladies, and it's very much a question and answer session. So we've got some questions up front, which I will be putting to them. But any questions that you want to ask the ladies during the session, it's a 40-minute session. Just put them in either in the chat, and I'll keep track of those and I'll ask as and when needed. So just a quick one, quick introduction for myself. My name is Claire O'Connor. I'm Senior Project Manager in Defence and Space. My background is electronic warfare, threat simulators. I've recently gone into the space industry, and I'm a Senior Project Manager for the new OneWeb Eutelsat satellite constellation. My company's putting the new digital channel subsystems into that, so very exciting. Quite a lot of pressure. It's a new constellation that's going up, and I wouldn't say it's a rival of Starlink, but it's it's getting there. So yes, very interesting work. The two ladies today, I'll start with Shannon Weidekamp. She is the CEO of Unbridled Air and Equus. Am I saying that correctly? Equus Flight Academy. Aviation executive and entrepreneur. Really interesting journey from education through being a flight attendant through to being safety and all the way to actually acquiring the flight school and air carrier that you started at. So excellent journey. And the focus points for Shannon really are the leading with cultural altitude, which is a good sentence. I like that. From classroom to flight deck, human factors in high stakes settings, and future proofing through people. Our other panelist is Tasha Funes. Again, Tasha, she's the CEO of ExclusiveInFlight. Really fascinating. Again, I find it really fascinating. Sort of a luxury corporate travel or airline training academy, really. Again, Tasha's had 20 years of experience in premium aviation consulting and luxury travel. And your main talking point, again, your main focus is, Tasha, is breaking the barriers at 40,000 feet. That's a good place. From service to strategy, coaching the next generation, and reimagining access, or access advocate, which is a really interesting phrase, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. So in terms of getting straight into the questions, ladies, as Tasha on my screen is at the top, I'll start with you, Tasha. Let's go with the title, Seat at the Table. So we talk about it quite a lot. But the real challenge is, having an influence once you're there. What helps you find your voice in those decision-making spaces?
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me today. Leadership is not about the title you hold, it's about the legacy that you leave, and how I feel that women make an impact beyond their traditional success metrics is by pushing us towards numbers, titles, promotions, awards, or income. It's not always necessary. Those achievements are worth celebrating, but they don't tell the full story or the impact that the value most shows up in the ripple effect. When a mentee comes to me and says, because I saw you, I believe you could too, that kind of representation has lasting power. And it's also when someone you coach steps into a role they once thought was completely out of reach, or when your presence helps shift them in their workplace culture towards being more inclusive and equitable. True leadership isn't just about what you achieve personally, but the opportunities you create for others in the space you leave behind for the next generation. So for me, the real question is not what's on your resume, but whose paths I've helped widen, whose voices I've made room for. And those are the measures that are most important to me.
Thank you. Shannon.
No. I feel like I'm on a game show. Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. No, just go referencing back to the title. There's a seat at the table, but really, it's once you're have the seat, it's having the influence once you're there, and what's helped you find your voice in those decision-making spaces.
Absolutely, and I appreciate being here today, and very excited to be here with Tasha. I find her fascinating as well. Very good friend and colleague. So, I think it is when you get to the table, a lot of times you feel unheard. You feel like you can repeat yourself over and over, and you're saying the same things, and that there's, it's just falling on deaf ears. So it's having the confidence to keep showing up, to always continue to learn, to have points that are valid, and not needing to be the loudest voice, because a lot of times the loudest voice is the one that they're they're trying too hard. So know your material, know what you want to say, and try to be the most informed about whatever it is that you're bringing up. So it's a not being the loudest, but being the most informed voice at the table, and just the persistence to keep um, talking when no one's looking at you, or they're talking over the top of you, and finding those skills to how do you react when someone continually interrupts you, when somebody continually just brushes over what you're saying, and practicing those skills, practicing them with someone that you work with, somebody that you value, somebody that you trust, and say, help me, just do some role playing here. I want to practice those skills. So, I think that's probably the best advice that I can give, is just to keep the persistence, and know that eventually somebody's going to say, "Hey, wait a minute, she has something to say," and it's very important.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting point when you say, as I think a lot of people go, yes, I know I need to have more confidence, but how do I actually train myself to? So role playing is can be daunting, but as you say, if you've got a trusted colleague, and everyone has either a work wife or a work husband, sometimes a trusted friend at work, having that that's a great sort of starter, a great point to put forward. Just coming back to staying on the leadership side of things, leadership for women in aviation it's more than just titles. We know this. Looking back on your journey, what is the moment that is there a moment that has truly defined your impact as a leader? What have you got in examples? I'll go with Tasha first. Sorry.
So I mean, there hasn't been any huge impactful events, but I will say, being in aviation is very daunting, like you said, as you know. My first piece of advice is to know your value. Enter, even if your voice shakes, speaks up, and you're nervous. Over time, consistently building your credibility and preparation is key and important. As long as you're walking in with confidence and your words carry authority, I think that helps to elevate you to where you need to be. For me, I don't like to necessarily wait for permission. Too often, I feel like women hesitate until someone turns to them and says, "Hey, what do you think?" But if you're waiting for that, that makes no sense to me. If you're already at the table, that means your perspective is needed, and use your seat just not for yourself, but to open up the space for the next woman. And
Yeah.
also, I would highly recommend in building allies within your environment. Influence rarely happens alone. So when you surround yourself with people who echo some of the same ideas and amplify your voice, I feel like it helps you to align with your true values, and your influence grows beyond just the conversation. It changes the culture of the room.
Yeah. Excellent. And same question to you, Shannon. Any moments that you stand out for you as defining that sort of I am having that impact that I've craved. Well, I've been looking for. I've made it almost. Yeah.
Well, my degree is in business management and leadership. And so, all through it was the question, kind of like the meaning of life. It was, what is leadership? Define leadership. Do you feel like you're a leader? And every time you thought you had it, somebody was there to tell you, no, that's not it. There's some other part of it, really digging deep to find out what that leadership and what your leadership style yourself is. And I think what I have really sort of found is defining what leadership isn't. And it's not about control. It's not about power for power's sake. It's not about trying to, be the most important person in the room. It is about, as Tasha said, it's about those ripple effects. How can we, it's not a solo event. It is finding ways that we can help others climb the ladder with that. And, probably really for me, when I realized what my position and what I wanted my leadership to be, was finding a young lady that she wanted to be an aircraft mechanic, I'm not an aircraft mechanic, but that does not mean that I cannot inspire somebody or help somebody along the way. I don't have to know what their technical qualifications are. And she was ready to quit. She was ready to just throw in the towel. I helped encourage her, helped find the people that she did need to talk to. I may not be the one that she needed to get the information from, but helping her find those individuals. And she moved from the Midwest here to Alaska at the ripe old age of 20 to become an aircraft or a helicopter mechanic. And she is thriving, and she has received all sorts of promotions. And seeing her thrive, and that she is now, carrying that on. She is the one that is going out and talking to younger people. Yeah, younger people. She's 25, so it's like, wow. That's,
Yeah.
to me, it's like if you're below 40, you're a kid. So
Yeah, they're all young.
but watching those types of moments, it's like, that's when you realize, leading is about leading other people to where they can thrive. And that just, creates a community where it makes us all better.
And as you say, then passes it on, has the equipped with the tools to then pass it on to the next person that comes along that needs the support sheet that she needs. That's brilliant. Fantastic. um, just going, Tasha raised the point. Aviation can be competitive, so but also collaborative. How can women play a role? And it's something that came up in an earlier session. I think it's a thread that runs through it as well. In fact, how can women help lift each other up as opposed to naturally perhaps wanting to compete with each other, which is what's happened in the past. And again, I'll go to Tasha. You always get the first go here. Apologies. Get your view on that.
No worries. Well, actually, I'm glad that you asked that question. That's one of the questions that's not always talked about in our industry. So I'm glad to jump in and dive into that. I feel like one of the most powerful shifts we can make as women in aviation is to stop viewing each other as competition. Start seeing each other as co-pilots. For way too long, women have been conditioned to believe there's only one seat at the table. But honestly, there's room for all of us. The table's large enough for everyone. We choose collaboration over competition, something incredible happens, and we create like an ecosystem where opportunities multiply instead of disappear. We share resources, we champion for each other. Shannon and I, we're always championing for one another. We celebrate each other's wins instead of shrinking in their shadow. And the reality is that the sky is wide open. The industry has space for all of us to thrive. When we uplift each other, we don't just survive. We build a future where women are visible, valued, powerful at every level of aviation, and we rise higher together. I like to tell people we're not competitors, we're co-pilots.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. I will continue just on that train of thought. And it was interesting. I was just listening to Dr. Musilova talk about the haters, and that she had this whole questioning of her very publicly. And it is very, very, very heartbreaking as a female if you have that other basically somebody that sort of just undercuts you as another female, because we're all supposed to be in this together. We're all facing challenges, so we don't need to face those from one another. And it really takes the wind out of you, especially if it's somebody that you've worked with, somebody that you felt like was a friend, and the next thing you know, it's like, what happened here? I thought this was my ally, and it really was not. So I think, preparing for that, I don't know that there's any way to keep that from happening. I think you're always going to encounter those individuals who feel like they have to find a way to make you feel less so that they feel more. But as Tasha said, it's by multiplying, and it's by adding to one another, and to, just because somebody else is more successful or finds a different way than me, it does not define or take anything away from me. It just makes the community better. So, and it really is. And I think that it is something that is not talked about a lot. We all want to think that we're in this together. But honestly, as I said, sometimes, the greatest allies have been the other men that are in the room, not necessarily the females. And I think we need to change that. I think we need to be very aware of that we are lifting up, other women that are in the room in our space.
Yeah, absolutely. To put it, as you say, put it succinctly, we've got enough to deal with without having to deal with each other as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And yeah, to use kind of frame, the male allies. It's funny to say that women need allies because as we should all be equal, but we are. The reality is we are playing catch up, and it's
Yeah.
when you have these fantastic male allies as well who are just beating the drum, it's brilliant. Um, for those going back and talking about your mechanic, Shannon, for
Mhm.
those early in their career or they're questioning whether they belong or anything like that, is there any, isn't what advice? I know you talked about, but what advice? Maybe for Tasha, what advice would you give them about building that confidence and creating their place? I'll go as always,
I'll go.
Tasha.
You can go ahead.
I let Shannon go first. There
Oh,
we go.
okay. All right. I think that it's confidence doesn't come all at once. It comes every new piece of information that you learn. And I still tell people it's I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and that's okay. It's a You may feel like, wait a minute, is this the right place for me? Is there a place for me at the table? Is, aviation, is defense, is this something that I want to go into? And, I started out as a corporate flight attendant and absolutely loved it. I love the people. I love the service. I love learning. And when I where I went from there was observing and finding out, why did these individuals want to um, use corporate aviation? What was the bonus for them? What was the motivations for them, for the company? Then it went into, safety. I went down, the safety rabbit hole as far as, you know, getting into accident investigation even, and what can we further look at as far as the safety. That, of course, then led into the management side of things. And then, so it's not just, you're not just going to end in one place. There's always other options that you can grow in this industry, and that's what It's interesting that you said you're now on the defense side of things. And I remember going to the Dubai Air Show and seeing all of these different defense satellites and ground service I thought, oh wow, maybe that's what I want to do. Wow, this is just really cool.
Yeah.
But I think that is, it's part of it. You may start out in one place, and that doesn't define your whole career. So, but the you have to start. You have to start somewhere. And as Tasha mentioned, finding the allies and finding those people that are going to help you along the way. Um, whether this young lady continues to be a helicopter mechanic in Alaska, or she decides to go on the mission, sign up for the mission to Mars with Dr. Mishalova, which I'm not so sure I would sign up for that after hearing about the showers. There's some challenges there, but I think that for anyone who's just getting started, that there is a place for you, and there's somebody to help you along the way. It may be difficult to find those people depending on where you are located, in the world and your environment, but they are out there. And with the platforms like this, platforms that LinkedIn, just reach out and say, to anybody and say, hey, I've got some questions. Would you help me answer these? And more than likely, you're going to be led to somebody that can answer those questions if that person can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tasha, you got anything to add?
Yeah. Absolutely. To add on to that, I'm kind of like Shannon. I started my journey off as going into psychology.
Huh?
On days, I definitely use it, right? Um, but here I am today, a corporate flight attendant. But yeah, you just never know what door or what trajectory this road of aviation may lead you to. But it's super important that we reach out to any potential person that can help mentor or guide you through any challenges to kind of navigate what fits for you, what's your just, like what makes sense. So yeah, just piggybacking off of what Shannon said,
Mm.
reaching out to finding someone in the community or in the aviation field and see if they can help lead you along the way. You may start off as a flight attendant, you may end up as a pilot. You may start off as a pilot and end up as a flight attendant.
Mm.
You never know. Things change.
I don't
Absolutely.
know which is less stressful.
Well, and I'm going to, because Tasha also has, she has a training business. She has
Mm.
a mentoring, and she's also started a foundation.
Oh
So,
wow.
I think
Cool.
that, that growth is, she's an excellent, excellent role model for
Mm.
everyone out there, and hopefully, hoping to help her with maybe some reaching out with the foundation too. So, but I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot of never limit yourself. The
Yeah.
possibilities are limitless.
And as you say, when you go down the proverbial rabbit hole, you identify the gaps, what's needed. I.e., as you say, a foundation is needed. You know, the layers come off it's like an onion. You know, and you end up all going down all sorts of paths because you just don't identify need for something. Absolutely. Um, as more, I mean, our workplace is changing anyway in terms of, the new generation is coming through. It's much more a feel as opposed to a do kind of environment, and especially women are we're a more emotional side of the species in terms of how we operate and what we do. So, in terms of the next decade or so, what do you think are the how do you think leadership qualities will change, or what do you think will be the most important ones coming through that perhaps, and the ones that will almost be retired from previous sort of working environments? I'll put to Shannon.
Um, I think that um, there's a lot of. I was just listening to something earlier today about AI and about AI
Mm,
negotiations and how that. That's something that's totally well. It is totally new. And I was talking with Mila about this. That it's AI has been around for so long. When you go to the microwave and you hit the popcorn button, that's AI. We don't think of it as
mm,
that. We think of it as this big, scary type of thing. And I think
mm,
that is going to really influence the next generation as far as how um, you know they deal with all sorts of leadership issues, whether it's they're leading a group of people and they have to find a way to negotiate or to mediate, problems within the workforce. I think that AI is going to play a big part of that. And, just looking at what's coming down the road, thinking of the future and bringing those things in that you can use them in a constructive way. Um,
mm.
I think that a lot of, when we first all heard the term AI, it was like, oh, this is a great way to cheat on your exams. This is a great way to cheat on writing a paper. This is a great way to not do it. Um, but that's what, one of the comments in the this morning was it allows you, if you use it for the right things, it allows you to spend more energy on the things that are more important. Note taking, for example, within a Zoom call, that's something that AI can do. You don't have to take your attention away from that. It gives you more time and ability to be able to concentrate on something that's more important. So I think that is something that really is going to be come in to the next generation.
That's so true, and I think there's a big conversation around AI, and it's tacit, it's lack of tacit knowledge in terms of
Mhm.
we won't lose the human aspect because it's ultimately not capable of reading the nuances of a room full of people and the mood and the that sort of those kind of skills, soft skills. But yeah, absolutely, it takes the burden off just the mundane stuff that isn't at value add. Yeah, absolutely. Tasha, can you, if you want to add to what do you think the leadership skills will be, or
Well, I
how
will
they'll
say, yes, I'm sorry. Companies have found that women leaders are much more profitable and innovative.
Mhm,
And with this new generation that's totally different, they think so outside of the box. It's really a game changer, right? They introduced creative ways of thinking outside of the box, things that we wouldn't ordinarily think of. So I think that they have like changed what leadership looks like. offering so much more than what we ordinarily would be used to.
It's very true. Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost, you're almost at the point where the the workforce is teaching the leaders, not the other way around, because they're not catching up fast enough because it's changing so quickly. You see all this course. How do you deal with the Gen Alpha or Gen Z, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic going on at the moment. And as you say, you throw AI into that, which becomes another sort of assistant. Or it really is changing rapidly in really interesting ways. Just continue with that, and it was a question that came up actually in a moderator did earlier. Because it's changing so rapidly, what kind of barriers did you guys face when you were coming up and through your journey, which you just don't see anymore for the younger people coming through? It's whatever it is. There's things that just melted away because we've moved on. I just, Shannon, if you want to.
Things that I think that I encountered were, and going back to, as a young girl, I remember that, it was, I wanted to be a race car driver. And I told Mila this story. And I told everyone at school, I was, second grade, and the teacher said, "Oh, honey, girls don't do that." And I went home, and of course, my dad was into racing. He was a drag racer, so that was my reason of wanting to do this.
Yeah.
And I was just in tears. And he said, "Honey, don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do something that you want to do." And so, I think that there have been a lot of glass ceilings that have been shattered by those who came before us, and I think there's still a lot more that need those first, the first to do all sorts of things as we go beyond into new technologies in aviation, including drone technology, eVTOLs. We've got so many up and coming technology things that are going to be there, that those barriers again are going to have to be broken. But I think that we already have accomplished a lot of that as women, and that so a lot of that has been the door has been opened in a lot of aspects. So now it's just getting the door further open and helping others to find that pathway in.
Well, ladies, we're all hanging out for the first female president, so if you want to apply. Tasha, have you got any comment?
Just to kind of add on what Shannon said as well, things have definitely changed. When her and I probably started aviation, I remember when we had to, step on a weight scale to turn it to talk about how much we weighed, to make sure that we were not overweight. There were so many restrictions in place, such as like not getting married, not having children. All of those things, thank goodness, are out the door, because now we have a complete understanding that women can thrive and still be moms. They still can have children. They still can do all these things and be amazing at their jobs. So breaking those shattering those roof ceilings, absolutely. I think we are way past that, and we're moving into a whole new generation.
Yeah, so my dad was a British Airways pilot. My stepmom, it's very cliche. My stepmom was a stewardess, and she was back, so back in the 60s. She said all the girls would line up, and one of the pilots would go and twang all their suspenders. I mean, it's just the thing nowadays. You just get no. It's like the come so far, but we've got still got a journey to go. But in terms of let's talk about inclusion, because there's still, in terms of especially placement in the world and sort of aviation, because it's so international in terms of the space it sits in. How can you balance the culture of inclusion, and that could be as in literally different cultures with sort of you kind of like your personal success. How do you balance that melting pot of people and getting the best out of people that you work with? Sorry, Shannon. Apologies.
Do I talk over? that is something that I really, really, really wanted to do a deep dive into about 10 years ago. And so that is when I got connected with a school called the Protocol School of Washington that taught about cultural differences. That was really a very specialized place in learning about, how do you find the different, because everybody does business differently. There's different negotiations, within even the U.S. I mean, East Coast to West Coast, North to South. There's many, many, many different cultural differences. It's not just country to country. And so, I think learning more about the diplomacy, about different how to navigate, whether it is in your own country, your own company, whether it is background, whether it's religion, whether it's ethnicity, and finding out how to we all have a lot to learn and something to learn about other people. Again, it's like the thing that's coming to mind is here in the U.S. You go to one location, it's like everything. Fizzy things are soda, and other places they're pop, and other things they're just a Coke, because that's
Yeah.
everything that is fizzy is it's just gonna be called one thing. But we all have those. We all have those different ways of saying things that we need to be very aware that just because somebody says something differently, not to immediately take offense to that, find out what it is. And that's what I heard a very good speaker that said, if you hear something and you're unaware of what the intent was, ask was there an intent to offend? Or was it just something that someone did not know? Because, our reaction, to those things, that is, again, that's another good leadership quality is, are we responding or are we reacting to, to those types of things? But I think just looking at finding a really good cultural program to where you can learn, where you're going to go, where you're going to do business at. So, and find ways that you can include those in your company who may be different from yourself.
Indeed. Tasha.
Aviation is like one of the most powerful connectors in the world, and I would think in this day and age we wouldn't be having these discussions about inclusion. However, the industry itself doesn't really reflect, incredible diversity for various different roles. Women make up less than 6% of commercial pilots in the industry. People of color, individuals with disabilities, they completely are still underrepresented, and we need to do better. We need to expand outside of those rims. It's not just a moral issue; it's about business issues, safety issue, and the future of flight overall. I feel like when you bring as much diversity as you can to the table, it creates a whole new wave of ideas and just energy to the table. When we talk about aviation, it's definitely about creating an industry that everyone needs to feel like they have a seat at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so you're missing out massive chunks of the market, the job market, the people market, maybe. We've had a question from the audience, from Diana. What does it take to make sure clients are feeling comfortable with your service? So I put that to Shannon first.
Actually, it's probably Tasha. Good question for
Oh,
Tasha.
Tasha, yeah.
I was going to say I will. I think that helping them feel comfortable is helping them feel safe. Is they want to know that and safety is whether or not it's their physical safety, their mental safety, their emotional safety, their safety of being able to we fly a lot of individuals who are very private people, and so not divulging where they're going, where they're flying. So it's like safety on all levels, and then then you can make them feel very comfortable and welcomed by the service aspect of things we do. But I'm going to toss that over to Tasha because I know that she can run circles around me in this.
Actually, you hit the nail on the coffin. I was going to say safety first is the most important thing that I advocate for any of my mentees. Like you said, making sure that they feel safe and you're aware of everything on board your aircraft, how to operate, because we do live in a day and age where emergencies do happen and they're unpredictable. So just being game ready and staying ready is important. And then we transition over into the customer service aspect of it, making sure that, we enter the room when necessary, not when we feel like we need to be there. It's better to go in and not be seen and come right out. And like Shannon said, it's privacy for them. They are, purchasing a private jet for the lifestyle and the conveniency of it being private. They don't want people in their space most of the time. So going in and out as needed.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you've got, and I'll put this to Shannon first. If you've got, what is your, of everything, your one piece of advice that you'd give someone that needs it, basically, in terms of that leading with impact, or getting a seat at the table?
I think knowledge is the first and foremost. And that knowledge can come from experience. That knowledge can come from research. That knowledge can come from other individuals that you're talking to. But never stop learning. Never stop learning. Your craft, or what it is that you have decided that you want to do. That is what has taken me where I am now. I ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes people don't like the questions that you ask, but I still, I find myself asking a lot of questions. Why? How? How's this work? But that's the way that I learn. I learn by asking and talking and experiencing different things. And so, going back to learning about the customer service aspect and the safety aspect of things, of where I originally started out in the industry. That then led to so many other questions, which led to so many other answers, which led to so many other interests. And just, don't be afraid to ask questions, I think, is probably my biggest piece of advice. As I said, the worst that someone could say is no. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that. If they're unkind or rude when you ask the question, go ask the question to someone else. There's a reason that you're not getting the information from that individual. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because they can lead to so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Tasha.
The aviation industry is a very ever changing, ever evolving, everything, right? So it's very unpredictable at times. And I know that, some people get discouraged when the doors aren't as open as they would like them to be. So I would leave as a takeaway is to stay ambitious, stay hungry, stay motivated. Make sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can to help curate your skills in aviation, whether that's a flight attendant, whether that's a pilot, whether it's avionics, mechanic, whatever it may be, always polishing up on the things that you can do, because you'll eventually get that call. And when you get the call, you got to be ready.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, we've got into our last couple of minutes, so just to give you a little give a summary. Thank you, ladies. It's been fantastic. Some great advice there. People feeling safe, and I think that goes beyond the physicality of feeling safe in an aircraft. I think creating a safe environment in your workspace encourages so much, brings so much more out of people. So I think it's true to say it of a human factor as well as just a mechanical factor for the aircraft. But yeah, and both of you echoing knowledge. Know your stuff, because people will notice when you are, because you keep coming up with the answers, you keep coming up with the right questions. And as you say, know your value. If you've been invited to sit at the table, there's a reason. So take that believe that reason, and go with it. But I love, Tasha, I love your point about surrounding people sound yourself with people that raise your voice. So having that collaborative environment, and going back to our favourite subject of uplifting each other, not competing with each other. So I think that's some really good points there. So yeah, thank you very much, the both of you. Continue to be co-pilots with each other. You always get on very well. Yeah. But thank you very much, and have a good day.
All right.
Thank you
very
Claire.
much.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.